Reid Sullivan built his logistics empire from the ground up, but beneath his perfect schedule and glass tower success lies a secret he never faced. One afternoon in Phoenix traffic, his world shatters. A girl no older than 11 runs toward his car, waving a candle and shouting, "Dad, light one!" Reid slams the brakes, shaken. The girl's name is Zoe. Sharp, witty, and selling homemade candles on a street corner. But it's not her charm that leaves Reid speechless. It's the way her eyes mirror someone he once loved, someone he never got to say goodbye to. Haunted by regret, Reid starts asking questions. Why does Zoe look so familiar? Why did her mother, Emma, vanish years ago without a word? What he uncovers shocks him. Emma never left. She was silenced by someone in Reid's own family. Now, a small flame becomes a symbol of something bigger. As Zoe's candle flickers in his palm, Reid must face the past, challenge betrayal, and decide if it's too late to build the future he never knew he had. Will he win back the trust he lost? Or will the truth burn it all down? A single flame, a hidden daughter, a chance at redemption. Subscribe now to watch this emotional story unfold, one candle at a time. The afternoon sun baked the pavement outside Reid Sullivan's Tesla as traffic crawled along Roosevelt Street in downtown Phoenix. His hand drummed against the leather steering wheel, his Bluetooth still connected to a muted conference call. Logistics numbers droned in the background, but Reid wasn't listening. He leaned back, eyes scanning the busy sidewalk. A woman pushed a stroller. A teenager strummed a guitar. Then, something strange. A small table, half collapsed, stood near the curb, lined with colorful candles. Behind it stood a girl, maybe 11. Her hair was tied in a lopsided braid. Her arms moved in wide gestures, calling out to passers-by. "Handmade candles. Only $5. They smell like vanilla and dreams." Reid almost smiled until she turned. Her eyes locked with his through the windshield. Something in her expression stilled him. Then she raised her voice, pointing directly at his car. "Dad, light one." Traffic stopped, but Reid's world stopped harder. He blinked. Did she just... "Dad," she repeated. Her voice wasn't panicked, just confident, like she knew him. The cars honked behind him. Reid's foot hit the gas out of the reflex. He turned the corner too fast and pulled into a nearby lot. Heart pounding, he threw the car into park and sat, breathing shallow. She looked just like Emma. He hadn't seen Emma in 12 years. Not since that night in Flagstaff, when she slammed the door and said, "Don't call me again, Reid. You're too busy for real things." He told himself she was being dramatic, told himself she'd move on, just like he had. But that girl, Zoe, looked like a snapshot of Emma at 11. Same eyes, same chin, same quiet defiance. He got out and walked. The girl was still there, waving a candle at an older couple. "This one smells like cinnamon rolls," she said. "It's our best seller." Reid approached slowly, as if any faster might spook her, or him. She looked up. A spark of mischief lit her face. "Back for a candle, mister? Or just checking if I'm still shouting 'Dad' at strangers?" Reid almost laughed. You said that to me." "I did," she said proudly. "Gets attention. You did stop, didn't you?" He studied her face. "What's your name?" "Zoe." She held out a candle in a purple jar. "This one's yours. Smells like bonfire and secrets." He took it, almost afraid to touch her hand. "Zoe, who's your mom?" She tilted her head. "You always ask random kids that?" Reid smiled faintly. "Only ones who call me Dad." Her mouth curved, but her eyes narrowed slightly. "Emma." He froze. His chest tightened like a vice. "Emma what?" "Just Emma. She says last names are for people with things to prove." Reid stared at the candle in his hand. Bonfire and secrets. That about summed it up. Zoe slid a folded piece of cardboard toward him. This one's free, but donations help. Mom's working 2 jobs. I make these after school. He placed $200 bills on the table. Zoe blinked. Wow. Are you a candle collector or just really bad at math? I'm just interested in where you came from. She lifted her chin. I came from love, Mom says, and some really bad timing. Reid swallowed hard. Can I talk to your mom? Zoe's face shifted. She's not big on surprises. Reid nodded. Tell her Reid stopped by. Her eyebrows shot up. That Reid? I guess. Zoe stared for a moment, then slowly picked up the bills. You know, you kind of look like me, I noticed. She handed him a second candle, this one shaped like a heart. Keep it. Might help you remember stuff. Reid walked back to his car, both candles in hand. As he placed them in the passenger seat, he noticed something small scrawled on the heart-shaped one. A name, pressed into the wax before it cooled. Zoe, age 11, for Dad. He stared at it as the engine idled, feeling the flame inside him flicker to life. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a call. Reid sat at the edge of his sleek office desk the next morning, staring at the 2 candles beside his laptop. The purple jar, the heart-shaped one. His reflection blinked back at him in the glass window of his 24th floor Phoenix Logistics Tower, but his mind wasn't in the room. It was still on the corner where a girl shouted, "Dad, light one!" He hadn't told anyone, not even Susan, especially not Susan. His phone buzzed with board meeting reminders. He ignored them. Instead, he opened a private browser tab and searched her name. Emma. But there were too many Emmas in Arizona. Too many stories. Too many questions. He picked up the heart candle again, thumb brushing the smudged name etched into the wax. Zoe, age 11, for Dad. His gut clenched. She had meant it. That was no sales trick. He tapped a contact. Matt, I need you to run a personal search. Personal? His head of security replied. You've never said that word in your life. Reid sighed. I'm serious. Her name is Emma. Mid-30s now. Used to live in Flagstaff. I need an address. And a kid. Girl named Zoe. There was a pause. Got it, Matt said. Give me an hour. Reid hung up and turned toward the city skyline. Phoenix gleamed under desert sun, unforgiving and perfect, like the life he'd built. But cracks were forming. Down on the street, Zoe packed up her candle stand in a lopsided canvas tote. She counted the bills Reid had left again, eyebrows high. 200s. Either he's really bad at candle math, she whispered, or he's got secrets. She crossed the empty lot behind the bodega, sneakers crunching over gravel, and slipped into the narrow side door of a faded, tan duplex. Inside, Emma stood in the kitchenette, back turned, stirring something in a chipped pot. Zoe tossed the bag on the counter. Sold out? Emma asked without turning. Almost. Got tipped by a guy in a suit. Emma turned slowly. A suit? Zoe grinned. Yep. Said his name was Reid. The spoon stopped. Emma's fingers tightened around the handle. Zoe watched her, eyebrows raised. That's a new reaction. You okay? Emma set the spoon down carefully. Her voice was low. Did he say anything else? Not much. Asked who my mom was. I said Emma. You know, just Emma. Zoe shrugged. Then he gave me a weird look and asked to talk to you. Emma wiped her hands on a dish towel. You didn't tell him where we live, right? No way. I'm 11, not dumb. Emma managed a tiny smile, but her eyes were somewhere else. Reid, she whispered, of all the streets in this city. Zoe tilted her head. Wait, that Reid? Emma sat on the edge of the counter. You were never supposed to meet him. Why not? Emma hesitated. Because people like Reid choose their future and leave the past behind. Zoe pulled the purple candle from the bag and held it up. Then maybe this brought him back. Emma stared at the flickering wick inside. He lit it? No, I did, but he took it. Emma looked away. Back at the tower, Matt called. Got something. Emma Langley, 36, single, mother, lives in Central Phoenix near Oak Street, works 2 jobs, nursing assistant and janitorial, has a daughter, Zoe Langley, age 11. No father listed on the birth certificate. Reid gripped the phone tighter. Anything else? Just one odd thing, Matt added. Your sister Susan signed off on a grant for Emma years ago, through the foundation, then had it rescinded. Reid's stomach dropped. Susan? She marked the file as a conflict of interest, said the applicant had ties to someone inside the company. Reid's pulse raced. He knew Susan was strategic, but this? He looked at Zoe's candle again, the tiny inscription catching the late sun. Thank you, Matt, he said. I'll take it from here. He ended the call, then whispered to himself, What did you do, Susan? Because something was burning, and it wasn't just the wick. The next day, Reid stood across the street from a weathered tan duplex. His usual tailored suit felt stiff against the rising Arizona heat, but he didn't move. His eyes were fixed on the second-floor window. The blinds fluttered, and a girl's laughter echoed faintly down the alley, Zoe. He'd been here 15 minutes, heart pacing like he was about to close the biggest deal of his life, and somehow he was more afraid. With a deep breath, he crossed the street and climbed the stairs. The paint on the door was peeling. He knocked once. Footsteps. The door opened a crack. Emma. Her face was thinner, sharper than he remembered, but the strength in her eyes hadn't dulled. Reid, she said flatly. He offered a faint smile. Hi, Em. She didn't return it. You shouldn't be here. I know, but I had to see you. The door remained only half open. I saw Zoe yesterday, he said, voice low. She shouted, Dad, at my car. Emma's jaw tightened. She has a sense of humor. Reid stepped closer. Does she know? Emma's voice was firm. She knows what I want her to know. He exhaled. She looks just like you. She looks like herself. Emma, he said, gently. Why didn't you tell me? Her eyes flashed. Tell you what, Reid? That after you disappeared I was pregnant? That your sister intercepted every letter I sent? That your world had no space for a candle-making waitress from Flagstaff? Reid's breath caught. Susan? Emma nodded. She came to the diner one day, said you were getting engaged, that you didn't want kids, said if I cared about your career, I'd disappear quietly. He blinked hard. That's not true. Emma crossed her arms. It doesn't matter anymore. It matters to me. There was silence between them. Then Zoe's voice called from inside. Mom? Who's at the door? Emma hesitated. Just an old friend. Zoe appeared behind her, peeking around the doorframe. Hey, you're the candle guy. Reid smiled. Yeah, and you're the girl with all the good sense. Zoe stepped forward. Mom, is he... Go back inside, Zoe, Emma said quickly. Zoe didn't move. Did you know he called me familiar? That means I look like someone. Reid crouched to her level. You do. You look like someone I once cared about a lot. Zoe squinted. Is that person Mom? Reid's throat tightened. Yeah, that person is your mom. Zoe looked between them. So, are you my dad? Emma knelt beside her. Zoe, this is complicated. Zoe folded her arms. I'm not a baby. I can handle complicated. Reid chuckled softly. She gets that from you. Emma stood. Enough. Reid, this isn't the time. I'm not leaving this time, he said. I missed too much already. Emma stared at him. What do you want? Reid glanced at Zoe. A chance. To know her. To make things right. Emma hesitated. Zoe suddenly held out something. A small drawing on paper, slightly smudged with wax. 2 figures, one tall, one short, holding candles. Above it, in bright red crayon, maybe. Reid took it carefully, hands shaking. "Did you draw this?" Zoe nodded. "I make pictures when I don't know how to talk." Emma looked at the drawing and blinked fast, swallowing emotion. "We'll talk later," she said quietly. Zoe looked up. "Will he come back?" Emma nodded. "If he means what he says?" Reid stepped back. "I do." Zoe smiled. "Then you should bring a candle next time, one you made." Reid grinned. "Deal." As he walked down the stairs, the crayon drawing tucked inside his jacket, he didn't feel like a CEO. He felt like a man starting over, with a picture and a flame. Reid sat in his corner office, blinds drawn halfway against the sharp Phoenix sun. The candle Zoe gave him sat on the edge of his desk, still unlit. The crayon drawing was pinned beside it, a quiet reminder that his life no longer revolved around shipping lanes and quarterly forecasts. He stared at his phone, thumb hovering over a contact. Susan. She'd always been the fixer, the strategist, the protector of their family name. But now, every memory of her holding a glass of wine and saying, "I took care of it," made his stomach churn. He tapped her name. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, little brother, finally found time for your big sister?" "I need to ask you something," Reid said flatly, "about Emma Langley." There was a pause. Susan's voice shifted. "That was years ago. Why dig that up now?" "Because I found her, and I found Zoe." Silence again. Then, carefully, "You sure that's wise?" Reid's voice dropped. "Did you tell her I didn't want kids?" Susan exhaled. "Reid, you were 26. You had just landed the Rhodes contract. That girl was sweet, but let's be honest, she didn't fit the life you were building. That wasn't your choice to make." Susan's tone sharpened. "You think this is about love? You have shareholders, a board, a public image. You throw that away for a street vendor's kid?" Reid gripped the armrest. "She's not just any kid. She's mine." A long silence hung in the air. Then Susan said coolly, "Be careful, Reid. Some things are better left in the past." He ended the call. Emma wiped her hands on a threadbare towel as Zoe walked in from the back patio, arms covered in soy wax. "Look." Zoe held up a crooked candle. "It's lopsided, but smells like oranges and firewood." Emma smiled. "You keep getting better." Zoe shrugged. "Maybe it's in my blood." Emma froze. Zoe sat at the small kitchen table. "He's not coming back, is he?" Emma knelt beside her. "Honey, this isn't easy." Zoe looked down. "You said he left, that he didn't care." Emma closed her eyes. "I believed that. For a long time." Zoe's voice was quiet. "But he looked like he wanted to care." Emma touched her daughter's cheek. "People change. Sometimes too late. Sometimes just in time." Zoe pulled out a candle she'd hidden behind her backpack. It was different, elegant, with smooth sides and a small wooden heart tied around the base. "I made this," she said softly, "for him, just in case." Emma stared at it, the flame carved into the wax, the heart, the hope. She didn't speak. That night, Reid sat in his parked car outside their building again. He held Zoe's heart-shaped candle in one hand, her drawing in the other. For the first time, he lit the wick. Flame danced gently, small and determined. He watched it flicker, then opened his phone and searched city permits. The old foundry lot, vacant for years, was still city-owned, and just 4 blocks from Emma's apartment. His mind began spinning. Candles. Community. Redemption. He made a note to call his foundation director in the morning. As he stared at the flame, his phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. "If you're serious about knowing your daughter, come by tomorrow. No promises. Just a conversation, Emma." He smiled for the first time all day. Then he whispered almost to the candle, "I'm not missing this again." And the flame, steady and warm, seemed to agree. Reid knocked softly on the apartment door the next morning, Zoe's heart-shaped candle cradled in his hand. The hallway smelled faintly of toast and old paint. For a man used to glass towers and leather boardrooms, everything here felt humbling and real. Emma opened the door, not smiling, but not shutting it either. "You came," she said. "I said I would," Reid replied. "Thanks for the message." Emma nodded and stepped aside. "Zoe's in her room, finishing a school project. She doesn't know you're here yet." Reid glanced around. The space was modest. Threadbare couch, wax-stained table, candles lined up like a quiet army of hope. A drawing hung on the fridge, done in crayon. 2 figures standing under stars, holding candles. He pointed. "That's us." Emma followed his gaze. "She drew it the night she met you." Reid's throat tightened. "She's incredible." Emma crossed her arms. "She's strong. Like her dad, whether you were around or not." He sat at the edge of the couch, candle in hand. "Emma, I need to say something I should have said a long time ago." She raised an eyebrow. "I'm sorry, not just for leaving, but for trusting the wrong people, for letting my sister speak for me. I didn't know what she said to you, and I hate that you had to carry it alone." Emma's jaw shifted, emotion flickering just beneath the surface. "I begged her to pass on letters. I left messages. I thought you didn't care." Reid looked down. "I didn't even know you tried." Emma exhaled. "That night in Flagstaff, I was going to tell you." Reid looked up. "That you were pregnant?" She nodded. "But then Susan showed up, cold, polished. She made it sound like you were already gone." Reid's voice cracked. "She stole years from us." They sat in silence for a moment, both staring at the unlit candle on the table between them. Then Zoe's door creaked open. She stepped out, ponytail messy, face hopeful. "Mom?" Emma turned. "Come here, baby." Zoe patted over, eyes locked on Reid. "You really came back?" Reid smiled gently. "Yeah, I promised I would." She reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a small matchbox. "Then light it, the one I made." Reid blinked. "You mean now?" Zoe nodded. "You said you'd start over. This is how candles begin." He held the candle steady. Zoe struck the match, hands practiced. The wick caught, and a soft flame flickered to life. They watched it together, Emma on one side, Zoe on the other. "This one smells like second chances," Zoe said quietly. Reid chuckled, emotion rising in his chest. "That's a good scent." Emma reached for her daughter's hand. "Zoe, would you like to spend some time with Reid? See what he's like?" Zoe looked up, surprised. "Really?" Emma nodded. "Just take it slow, okay?" Zoe grinned. "I can do slow, but only if we make candles together." Reid laughed. "Deal." She grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the back table where a few molds sat. "Come on, I'll teach you." Emma watched them, heart aching in a new way. Not with bitterness, but with something else. Hope. Zoe looked over her shoulder, eyes bright. "Look what I made, Dad." Reid paused. The word hit him like a sunrise. He smiled. "I see it, sweetheart. It's perfect." In that moment, with wax melting, crayons nearby, and a candle burning between them, the past didn't matter. The flame had started, and it was real. Zoe's laughter rang through the apartment as Reid tried, and failed, to pour wax evenly into a candle mold. Wax dripped onto the table, then his sleeve. She burst out laughing. "Dad, you're officially a disaster." Reid looked up, stunned again by the word. "You just called me Dad." Zoe shrugged with a grin. "Well, you kind of earned it." Emma smiled softly from the kitchen, drying her hands. The way they looked at each other, it wasn't just new, it was healing. Reid wiped the wax from his arm. Okay, Master Candlemaker, teach me again. Slower this time. Zoe nodded. You gotta wait until the wax cools just enough so it doesn't bubble. Timing is everything. He leaned in. Is that a candle lesson or a life lesson? She grinned. Both. The front door buzzed. Emma walked over and checked the intercom. Her body stiffened. It's Susan. Reid stood immediately. What? Why would she? Emma opened the door cautiously. Susan stood in a sharp black blazer, sunglasses tucked into her collar, expression unreadable. Well, this is cozier than I imagined, Susan said, stepping inside without waiting. Zoe instinctively moved closer to Reid. Susan's eyes landed on the candles, the drawing on the fridge, the cluttered table of wax and string. She forced a smile. Domestic, charming. Emma folded her arms. Why are you here? Susan looked at Reid. We need to talk. Alone. Reid stepped forward. Anything you have to say, you can say here. Susan's tone cooled. You're jeopardizing your reputation, your board standing, and your company's vote on the Mexico port contract, all for a child you didn't even know existed until 3 days ago. Zoe flinched. Emma stepped protectively in front of her. Don't talk about her like that. Susan ignored her. You've always let your emotions cloud your judgment. That's why I handled things back then. Reid's voice was low. Handled? You mean lied? Susan glanced at Zoe, then back to Reid. She was never part of the plan. You were building something global. I protected that. You robbed me of a family, he said, chest tight. Of 11 years I'll never get back. Susan's expression didn't flinch. You're welcome. Emma stepped in. You manipulated me. I cried in the back of that diner for hours after you left. You said if I cared about him, I'd vanish. Susan's face finally cracked. You would have ruined everything. You were a temporary mistake. Zoe's voice came in small but sharp. I'm not a mistake. Silence. Reid turned to his daughter. No, you're not. You're the only thing that's ever made sense. He looked at Susan. Leave. Susan scoffed. You think you can just rewrite the past with candles and apologies? Grow up. Reid stepped closer, voice firm. I am grown. And I don't need you to run my life, or my company. Don't come back here again. Susan turned, heels clicking hard against the tile, then slammed the door behind her. The apartment sat still for a beat. Then Zoe asked, She really tried to erase me? Emma knelt beside her. She couldn't. You shine too bright. Reid crouched, holding Zoe's hand. And I see you now. I promise I'll never let anyone dim that light again. Zoe blinked fast, then reached into a shoebox beneath the table. She pulled out a small, carefully wrapped candle. She handed it to Reid. I was saving this for my birthday, but maybe you need it more? He unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a candle shaped like a compass, the wick placed where true north should be. Reid smiled. This is perfect. Zoe whispered, It means you found your way back. Reid's eyes filled. He looked at Emma, then at Zoe, and held the candle close. He had, and he wasn't going anywhere. Reid stood outside the old community center on Monroe Street, staring at the rusted chain-link fence. The building had been boarded up for months, left to decay between a liquor store and an abandoned lot. But today, he didn't see decay. He saw possibility. He snapped a picture and sent it to his assistant with a note. Buy this property. Today. Use my name. Inside his car, Zoe's compass candle rested in the cup holder, its wax catching the morning sun. Every time he looked at it, he remembered her voice. Steady, certain. It means you found your way back. Back at the apartment, Emma stirred pancake batter while Zoe doodled on a napkin. "You know," Zoe said, "Dad's not as bad at candle stuff as I thought. He's still messy, but he tries." Emma smirked. Trying counts. Zoe held up her sketch. It was a blueprint of sorts. Tables, a room full of candles, kids sitting together. If we had a real space, like a studio, I could teach other kids. Some don't even have hobbies. Emma glanced at the drawing. "You'd be a great teacher." Zoe grinned. "Think Dad would help? He's got like 12 buildings." Before Emma could respond, there was a knock. It was Reid, holding a folded city permit. "I bought a place," he said, breathless. "It's run down, but it's big enough, and it's close. Thought maybe it could be yours. A candle studio? For Zoe? For the neighborhood?" Zoe gasped. "Wait, are you serious?" He handed her the papers. "One condition. You teach me how to make one of those twisty rainbow candles you showed me." Zoe hugged him hard. "Deal." Emma leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes glistening. "You really did it." Reid looked at her. "I meant what I said. I want to be part of this, not just for Zoe, but for you, too." Emma nodded. "We'll see." That afternoon, Reid canceled a meeting with the Port of Mexico investors. Instead, he took Zoe to the lot he'd just purchased. She jumped out of the car, running toward the rusted fence. "It's huge!" she shouted. "Look at all the space!" Reid followed behind, smiling. "It needs work." Zoe turned, eyes dancing. "Good. So do we." Inside, beams were exposed and dust coated the floor, but the light through the cracked windows made everything glow. Zoe walked slowly to the far wall. She placed her compass candle on an old shelf and whispered, "Let's start here." Later that evening, Emma received a letter in a plain white envelope. No name, just a seal, from Sullivan Global Logistics. She opened it slowly, reading in silence, then rereading. Her hands trembled. Inside was a copy of a rescinded grant application from 11 years ago, her name on it. A red note scrawled in the margin. "Denied, too personal. Direct link to Reid. Potential scandal." Signed, Susan Sullivan. Attached was a note in Reid's handwriting. "Emma, I found this in my sister's archive. I never saw it. I'm sorry she took your voice away. She doesn't speak for me. Not then, and not now." Emma stared at the paper, breath caught in her throat. Zoe peeked over her shoulder. "Is that from him?" Emma nodded slowly. Zoe smiled. "Told you he was trying." Emma whispered, "Yeah, he really is." She folded the letter, tucked it back in the envelope, and lit a small candle nearby. The flame flickered gently, not perfect, but real. Reid paced the polished floor of his executive office, blinds drawn, heart heavy. He stared at the folder on his desk. Susan's name stamped across the top. Matt, his head of security, had just delivered it, eyes unreadable. "She covered her tracks well," Matt had said, "but not well enough." Now, Reid opened the folder again. Inside were printed emails, voice transcripts, even a handwritten memo in Susan's cursive. "Intervene quietly. She must not contact Reid. Risk to company optics." Beside it was a scanned image of a shredded letter, Emma's handwriting visible beneath the tear marks. The words, "Reid deserves to know," still legible. Reid's stomach churned. He had spent years thinking Emma simply left, that she'd walked away. But his own sister had been the architect of silence. He grabbed his phone and dialed her number. She answered, as if expecting him. "You finally read it. How long were you planning to keep lying to me?" Reid's voice was sharp. Susan's tone was icy. "You were building something too important. I protected you from the wrong path. She and Zoe were never the wrong path. You were." Susan sighed. "Be careful what you say. You're still CEO, for now." Reid stood tall, not if being CEO means covering for betrayal. He ended the call. Later that day, Reid pulled up to Zoe's new candle studio. The windows were freshly scrubbed, the "Coming Soon" sign painted in bold purple letters. Inside, kids from the neighborhood were gathered around folding tables, each with a tiny wax kit in front of them. Zoe bounced toward him. "Look, I taught 5 kids how to twist wicks today." "That's incredible," Reid smiled. "You're a natural leader." Emma was in the back, organizing supplies. She gave Reid a cautious nod, less distant than before. He stepped beside her. "I have something to tell you." She straightened. "What is it?" He handed her the file. "Everything Susan did. Every lie, every blocked letter. It's all here." Emma skimmed the first page, then the next. Her hands trembled. Reid continued, voice quiet. "I didn't know, and now that I do, I'm not staying silent." Emma looked up. "What are you going to do?" He exhaled. "There's a board meeting next week. I'm going to bring this to them." Her eyes widened. "That could cost you everything." He nodded. "Then maybe everything needs to change." That night, Reid sat in his high-rise condo, candlelight flickering on the coffee table. The compass candle Zoe had given him burned gently, its flame steady. He drafted a letter to the board. "My sister, Susan Sullivan, knowingly acted against the interests of this company and my personal life. I have enclosed evidence. I accept full responsibility for what her influence cost this business and my family. I will no longer run this company if silence is the price of leadership." Reid signed it. No hesitation. He leaned back, staring at the candle. Its flame flickered once, then held strong. Zoe's voice echoed in his mind. "It means you found your way back." Yes, and now he was burning the lies down to build something brighter. The morning sun poured through the half-cleaned windows of the new studio, lighting up the fresh rows of candle jars and dye bottles. Zoe stood proudly behind a long folding table, giving instructions to a group of 4th graders. "Don't stir too fast or the colors get muddy. Think of it like emotions. They need space." Reid leaned in the doorway, arms crossed, heart full. Just 2 weeks ago, she was selling candles on the corner. Now, she was running her own workshop. Emma walked up beside him, brushing wax off her jeans. "You know, she comes up with those metaphors on her own." Reid smiled. "I can tell." Emma watched him closely. "You skipped that Mexico contract." He nodded. "Didn't feel right. That deal was worth millions." He looked at her. "So is this." That evening, Reid met with his legal team in the corner of a quiet coffee shop. He placed Zoe's drawing from earlier, her first version of the studio, in front of them like a blueprint of something sacred. "I want this protected. Whatever happens with the board, this stays. The space, the studio, the classes. Zoe owns the concept. Put it in her name." The lawyer hesitated. "She's 11. Reid leaned forward. "Then hold it in trust, but make sure it can't be taken from her, not by Susan, not by anyone." They nodded, scribbling notes. One of them asked, "Are you ready for what happens when this goes public?" Reid exhaled. "I already missed 11 years of my daughter's life. I'm not missing what comes next." Back at the studio, Zoe held out a new candle to Emma. It was shaped like a star, the wax a swirl of soft green and orange. "I made this for Dad." Emma raised a brow. "What's the occasion?" Zoe shrugged. "He gave up something big today. I could tell." Emma smiled softly. "He's trying hard." Zoe nodded. "That's why I want to give him something that glows." The next morning, Reid returned to the studio carrying a canvas bag. He set it on the workbench beside Zoe. She peeked inside. "What is it?" He pulled out a packet labeled "Candle Making for Beginners, ages 6 to 12." along with several molds, a colorful instruction board, and a stack of release forms. Zoe's eyes lit up. "Wait, is this real?" He grinned. "It's a city-backed after-school pilot. We launch next month. You're the face of it." Zoe blinked. "You want me to teach real classes?" "You already are. Now we just make it official." Zoe beamed. "This is cooler than selling candles by the bus stop." He chuckled. "It's only the beginning." Just then, another kid walked into the studio with a crumpled dollar and wide eyes. Zoe leaned down. "Hi, you want to learn?" The kid nodded. Zoe handed him a plastic spoon and a tiny jar of wax. "Welcome to class." Later, after the kids had left, Emma found Reid sitting in the corner, watching the leftover candles glow in a line across the windowsill. She sat beside him, brushing her fingers over a wax flower Zoe had made. "She's changing, you know," Emma said quietly. "So am I," Reid replied. Emma glanced at him. "I used to think I could do this on my own, that I had to." Reid met her eyes. "You did, and you did it beautifully." Emma looked down. "But I'm tired of carrying it alone." Reid reached over and took her hand. The last candle flickered, then steadied. The bell above the studio door jingled softly as Zoe stepped in, holding something behind her back. Reid looked up from restocking wax tins, and Emma glanced over from a shelf of dye bottles. Zoe walked straight to Reid, grinning like she had a secret. "I made something," she said. Reid crouched down. "Another masterpiece?" She revealed a candle, unlike the others. It was short, round, layered with pale blues and deep golds, like sky melting into sunlight. Around the middle was a thin band of braided wick, tied like a belt. Reid took it slowly. "What's the story behind this one?" Zoe tilted her head. "I called it First Light. It's for you." Emma turned, quietly listening. Zoe added, "Because you were in the dark, but now you're trying." Reid's throat tightened. "Zoe, this is beautiful." Zoe smiled. "It's okay if you don't light it. Some things are meant to last." He pulled her into a hug. "I'll keep it forever." Emma stepped forward. She stayed up late working on it. Reid looked at her. "Thank you for letting me try." Emma held his gaze. "I see what you're doing, and I see her smiling again. That matters more than anything." Reid set the candle on the front display, right beneath a hand-painted sign that read, "Hope begins with flame." Later that week, the boardroom at Sullivan Global buzzed with murmurs as Reid entered, folder in hand. Every eye turned toward him. Susan sat stiffly near the center, jaw tight, eyes calculating. Reid stood. "I'm stepping back from direct operations, effective immediately." Gasps echoed. A few board members leaned forward. "This isn't a crisis, it's a correction," Reid continued. "I've uncovered actions taken by a family member that affected my private life, my judgment, and indirectly, this company." Susan cut in. "This isn't relevant to business." Reid raised his hand. "Let me finish." He placed the evidence folder on the table. "This contains proof that Susan Sullivan tampered with personal correspondence and used her position to sabotage relationships outside this boardroom. The result was the silencing of a partner and the loss of over a decade with my daughter." A heavy silence dropped over the room. Reid finished calmly. "I'll remain chairman in name only, and I'll redirect a portion of my shares to fund new youth development initiatives across Phoenix, starting with arts and hands-on learning." Susan scoffed. "You're destroying your legacy over a candle class?" Reid looked her in the eye. "No, I'm finally building one." That night, back at the apartment, Reid, Emma, and Zoe sat together on the patio. String lights glowed above them, soft and warm. Zoe held the candle she'd gifted him, resting it in her lap. "Did you tell them?" Reid nodded. "All of it." Emma leaned closer. "And they listened?" He smiled. They did more than listen. They voted to remove Susan from the board. Zoe gasped. Wait, really? Reid chuckled. She won't be calling any more shots. Emma shook her head in disbelief. I thought you might lose everything. Reid looked at them both. Turns out, I had nothing until now. Zoe placed the candle on the table between them. Then let's light it together. Emma struck the match. Reid steadied the wick. Zoe cupped her hand against the breeze. The flame caught. 3 hands stayed near, warm in its glow. No boardroom, no titles, just family, and the light they chose to keep. The community lot on 5th and Lexington had been abandoned for years, just cracked pavement and weeds breaking through old concrete. But now, scaffolding framed its edges, and new string lights dangled from steel poles. In the center, volunteers laid down colorful mats and folding tables. Reid stood with Zoe, a clipboard in his hand as she reviewed the setup. Those tables need to move closer to the stage, she said, pointing. The kids can't reach the pouring stations from way back there. Reid smiled. Yes, ma'am. Anything else, Director? Zoe smirked. Yeah, you're in charge of snacks. But don't buy raisins. Nobody eats those. Reid laughed and scribbled it down. No raisins. Got it. Emma approached, arms crossed but grinning. I've never seen him take orders so well. He's learning, Zoe replied. They stood together as city workers hoisted the final banner above the stage. Phoenix First Light Festival. Powered by young makers. Zoe beamed. It's real now, isn't it? Reid nodded. All because of one candle. By noon, the lot buzzed with energy. Kids poured wax into molds shaped like stars, birds, and even tiny tacos. Parents browsed vendor tables while music played softly in the background. Reid wore a staff lanyard, but most people just called him Zoe's dad. A girl from Zoe's school tugged on her sleeve. Did your dad really help build all this? Zoe glanced at Reid, who was laughing with a group of kids by the juice stand. Yeah, she said quietly. He did. The girl smiled. Cool. You're lucky. Zoe didn't answer right away. Then she whispered, I am now. Later, Emma led a demonstration under the canopy showing how to blend herbs into wax for scent layering. Zoe stood beside her, helping the smaller kids line up. Reid watched them from a bench near the tree line, holding the candle Zoe had gifted him weeks ago, the compass design still unburned. Matt, his security chief, walked over, nodding at the scene. Never thought I'd see you turn down the Port of Lisbon deal for a neighborhood candle fest. Reid shrugged. Lisbon doesn't have Zoe. Matt chuckled. So, what's next? Reid looked toward the main tent. We expand. Not just this festival. Workshops, mentoring, space for kids to create. He turned the candle in his hands. We build where it matters. As dusk fell, the lights above glowed golden. Families stayed late, voices hushed by the soft hum of string music and melting wax. Reid stood at the mic on stage, Zoe beside him. I used to think success came from what we build in boardrooms, he said, voice even, eyes scanning the crowd. But this, he motioned toward the kids holding up their candles, this is the brightest thing I've ever been part of. Zoe nudged him. You're gonna cry, aren't you? He smiled. Maybe. She took the mic. This candle, she held up her own, shaped like a phoenix with gold glitter wings, is for second chances. Because sometimes people leave, and sometimes they come back. The crowd clapped softly. A few wiped their eyes. Emma stood at the edge of the crowd, watching both of them. Her daughter, maybe not just her ex. After the speeches, Reid returned to his bench. He lit the compass candle and set it on the ground in front of him. Zoe sat beside him. You lit it. He nodded. I'm ready, and the flame burned steady. Zoe leaned against his arm. We should make one for Mom next. Reid looked at her. What should it be? She thought for a moment. A lighthouse? Because she kept us safe. Reid smiled. Perfect. The flame flickered in front of them, casting long shadows across the festival grounds. And, for the first time in years, Reid felt completely, irrevocably home. Reid stared at the slim black envelope on his desk, hands clenched. It had arrived by courier, marked confidential, but there was no return address, only his name. Inside, a single sheet of paper, typed and unsigned. Your sister's signature is forged on the Lisbon deal. She kept Zoe hidden to leverage full voting rights. Ask legal to trace the paper trail. It goes deeper than you think. He read it 3 times, then picked up the phone. Matt, I need you to pull the full audit on the Lisbon project, backdate everything. Cross-reference with Susan's authorization log and board votes. Today. On it, Matt replied without hesitation. 2 hours later, Reid sat across from Emma in the Candle Studio's back office. Zoe was outside helping a younger student trim a wick, laughter echoing from the front room. Reid placed the note on the table. She forged documents, he said quietly. She blocked your messages, lied to both of us, but now it looks like she used Zoe to gain enough control of my shares to push through international deals under my name. Emma's mouth parted in shock. That's criminal. I know, Reid said, and it means everything we've built here, the studio, the classes, even the festival, was nearly leveraged without my knowledge. Emma leaned back, staring at the paper. So, what happens next? Reid looked her in the eyes. I end it. Publicly. No more secrecy. That evening, Reid called an emergency shareholders meeting. The auditorium buzzed with speculation. Reporters clustered outside. Susan sat near the center aisle, arms crossed, lips pressed tight. Reid stood on stage, lit by the soft overhead spotlight. I want to speak not as a CEO, but as a father, he began. One whose absence was weaponized, one whose daughter was hidden, intentionally, by someone close to me. Gasps murmured through the room. He held up the document. This note led to an audit, revealing forged signatures, fraudulent board votes, and abuse of internal access, all linked back to Susan Sullivan. Susan stood abruptly. That's a lie. Reid faced her. You stole my child's story, my shares, and my name, for profit. He turned to the crowd. Today, I revoke all voting rights held through manipulated channels, effective immediately. Legal action is underway, and from this point forward, our mission is not just growth, but integrity. Applause broke out. Susan, red-faced, stormed down the aisle and out the back door. The next morning, Zoe opened the studio with a yawn and a stretch. A new drawing hung on the wall, a lighthouse, tall and golden, with a flickering flame at the top. Made it last night, she told Reid, who walked in behind her. It's for Mom. Reid smiled. She deserves it. Emma stepped in, her eyes softer than they'd ever been. You did it, she said. You told the truth. Reid nodded. Because of you. Because of her. Zoe walked over, holding a brand new candle, half lighthouse, half compass. I call this one homecoming, she said. It's for all of us. Reid took it gently, heart full. We light it tonight, Emma said, together. The flame, though unlit, already warmed the room. The once vacant lot had transformed into a colorful haven. Wooden archways wrapped in paper lanterns lined the walkways, while tables overflowed with wax molds, scent oils, and baskets of crayons used to dye wax in every color imaginable. Reid stood at the main entrance, greeting families as they entered. This wasn't just an event, it was a movement. The Phoenix First Light Festival stretched across the block now. Local schools partnered to bus kids in. Teens ran volunteer booths. Fire marshals approved every station. Emma had even wrangled a city grant. And at the center of it all was Zoe. She darted from table to table, helping one boy with a broken mold, guiding a girl to steady her wick, and checking each kid's candle like a proud curator. Reid followed her from a distance, amazed. "Dad!" she called. "The scent bar's out of cinnamon again." He jogged over, grabbing a fresh jar. "Here you go, Miss Boss." She grinned. "Delegate, remember?" Emma appeared with a clipboard. "We have 38 finished candles and 6 news crews circling. How's that for community impact?" Reid leaned close. "You built this with a whisper and a lighter?" Emma smirked. "And you brought the matches." At the reflection booth, kids placed finished candles into rows shaped like a phoenix. Zoe's idea. At nightfall, they'd light them all together. One small girl approached Reid nervously, holding a lumpy, heart-shaped candle with a crooked wick. "Can I put mine in?" she whispered. Reid knelt. "Of course, every candle matters." She stepped forward, placed hers at the phoenix's tail, then turned and hugged him quickly before darting off. Emma had seen the moment. "That's why this matters," she said. Reid looked at the display. 67 candles and counting. Because they see themselves in that light. Later that afternoon, the mayor arrived unannounced, shaking hands, taking photos, even joining a quick wax-pouring demo. He turned to Reid as they walked toward the center booth. "This is the kind of outreach Phoenix needs. You ever think about turning this into something permanent?" Reid glanced toward Zoe, who was helping a wheelchair-bound boy scent his wax with lavender. "I already have." The mayor nodded. "Let's talk Monday." By twilight, the music softened. Families gathered near the candle phoenix. Emma handed out matches to parents, battery lighters to kids. Reid stood beside Zoe, holding her homecoming candle. She'd insisted it sit in the phoenix's heart. "Ready?" she asked. He took a breath. "I've been waiting 11 years." Together, they stepped forward. Zoe lit the first wick. Emma lit the second. Reid lit the third. The flames rippled outward, each candle catching the next. Within minutes, the entire phoenix blazed with soft golden fire, its wings glowing across the festival grounds. Gasps filled the air. Some cried. Others simply watched in silence. Zoe took the mic. "This light means we came back, all of us, and we made something new." Applause. Emma stepped forward, eyes wet but smiling. "This isn't just about candles. It's about how you can light something, even when it's been dark for a long, long time." Reid took the mic last. "I once thought success was about ships and deadlines, numbers and forecasts," he said. "But tonight, I see my daughter lighting the world, and I realize this is the only legacy I want to leave behind." The crowd stood together as the phoenix flickered against the stars. And in that soft, flickering glow, the entire city felt the warmth of a family reformed, one flame at a time. The sky above Phoenix had turned a velvet blue, stars peeking through the dusk as the final night of the festival arrived. Rows of flickering candles lined the plaza, warm light dancing on every face. Families gathered shoulder to shoulder, holding small glass jars. Each flame a story waiting to be told. Reid stood behind the main table with Zoe and Emma at his side. His arm wrapped gently around Zoe's shoulder. Emma's hand brushed against his. Neither moved away. A hush swept over the crowd. Zoe stepped up to the mic, her voice soft but clear. "A while ago, I was standing on a street corner, selling candles to people who didn't look me in the eye. And then someone did." She turned, looking at Reid, and he didn't just buy one, he came back. A ripple of emotion moved through the audience. Emma took her hand. "This festival started with one candle, one chance, and now it's grown into something we can pass on." Reid stepped forward. "I lost time I can't get back, but today I'm grateful for the fire that helped me find my way again." He lifted Zoe's first gift, the compass candle, and placed it on the central platform. "Tonight," he said, "we light this together, not as separate lives, but as one family." As the crowd raised their candles, Zoe whispered, "Dad?" He leaned down. She held up a folded drawing, 3 stick figures under a banner of light. One wore glasses, one had a braid, and the tallest had a tie and a heart over his chest. Zoe grinned. "I made us." Reid blinked, throat tightening. "It's perfect." Emma smiled at both of them. "It's us." One by one, flames ignited. Children giggled, grandparents cried, volunteers clapped, and, in the center of it all, Reid, Emma, and Zoe lit the final candle, the phoenix heart, together. A golden flare burst outward. It wasn't just fire. It was a beginning. Later that night, the festival wound down. Empty cups and cooling wax lined tables. Reid helped fold chairs while Emma packed up supplies. Zoe sat cross-legged beneath the main banner, sketching in her notebook. Emma looked at Reid. "So, what now?" He paused. "We keep building. For her, for others." Emma tilted her head. "Together?" He looked at her. "If you'll have me." She reached over, took his hand. "Let's not waste another day." Zoe ran over, waving her latest candle. "Mom! Dad! I call this one Forever." Emma chuckled. "That's a big word." Zoe shrugged. "So's family." She handed the candle to Reid, then looked at both of them. "Can we light it tomorrow? Just us?" Reid nodded. "Yeah, just us." As the last string lights dimmed and the crowd disappeared into the night, a single flame remained. Zoe's Forever candle, glowing steady at the center of the plaza. One light, 3 hearts, and a future illuminated by love, redemption, and the power of choosing each other again.